This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Saints Pod. My name is Greg, and as always today joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zach. How you doing, mate? You alright?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. We're slowly inching further towards real football again. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, the belief is there for me. As the days pass, the expectations only become more unrealistic. As you know, mate, that's just how I live my life. But look, today is not about our impending FA Cup tie with Arsenal. It is, in fact, looking even further forward than that at the end of the season, mate, and what we think we might be expecting. You said we should take a look at players contracts, who we've got currently in on loan, who we've got going out on loan, and kind of try and predict, I guess, what the transfer window focus might be.
There's going to be two outcomes, right? Obviously, promotion or non-promotion, and I think those are going to drastically change what people's, perceptions are. By people, I mean like the players, and I mean that going from the statement made by Peretz, right? He's like, yeah, I'd be open to staying in the summer, and when the summer comes up, and I think what he means is I'll be open to coming to stay with you and playing in the Premier League. So I think he's done a very good job of showing that he could probably play in the Premier League, right? I think that he would be looking for a move, considering your current club is Bayern Munich, you'd probably expect to not move on to a second tier English club.
You want to be looking at top level, right?
Yes.
And that's the interesting points, right? There's a lot of, as we look at it, a lot of moving parts coming into the end of the season. Lots of loans in, lots of loans out, lots of contracts expiring. And it's kind of a pivotal point for Sports Republic, really, after, I would say, even without promotion, right, turning it around as the season has gone on. It's an important window to continue that sort of momentum, whichever direction. The direction still needs to be up, regardless of whether it's, no, we didn't quite make it this year, but we need to go up, or it's, well, we need to be up and above the relegation zone because we don't get parachute payments if we come back down this year. That's the thing to go with. So I thought we'd start like we start our team predictions, mate. We're going to go back to front, I think is a logical way to approach it, at least to start with. I'll start with like the areas that are going to be probably the most active in the window, and it's not really going to be a surprise to anyone, right? Let's talk goalkeepers. You alluded to, Peretz here on loan from Bayern Munich. We do have the option to buy for 8 million, which, honestly, with how important he's been to the team since he has arrived, feels like an absolute steal, right? Like, that is unbelievable.
It feels like a no-brainer, but it's also one of those things where I feel like it could end up like Alderweireld's transfer, right? Where we just assume the contract's going to be signed, and then he goes elsewhere. And, he's kind of alluded to the fact that he's like, well, I want to be playing at the top, so you guys kind of need to be at the top. And that's understandable. He's ambitious. He's tried very hard to keep clean sheets. He's definitely been an upgrade on what we've had thus far. Depends how disastrous we think it would be with potentially Ramsdale coming back. I think he's maybe a better keeper than Ramsdale? Yeah.
So that's exactly the moving parts, right? So for me, absolute no-brainer. Buy Peretz, sell Rambo. I love Aaron Ramsdale, but his wages, regardless of whether we're down or up, are high. And that's not the model that Sports Republic are going to want to set, even in the Premier League, right? So, and I think it's pretty clear that Peretz he only came to us because he wants to be a number one goalkeeper and get game time. So he's not going to come here and sit on the bench behind Ramsdale.
No.
So we're either buying Peretz as number one or we're not buying Peretz at all. And it would feel like such a waste of an opportunity when he's such an important part. But yeah, I mean, on the case of Aaron Ramsdale, of course, on loan at Newcastle this season, and they've made it pretty clear that they're not going to be signing him at the end of the season, despite having an option to do so. And this is my concern, right? Is this limbo the same like limbo that we had in January and in the summer, where we're kind of waiting for bits to fall into place? Like you say, Peretz, if we don't just sign him up, is the opportunity going to go because we're waiting to see if someone comes in for Ramsdale or not, or what? That's the concerning part, right? Like, you don't really get the opportunity to make this decision early because
just that and also just the goalkeeper situation we have is we have as many goalkeepers. We have it feels like we have as many goalkeepers realistically to field an outfield team, right? Like we've got Ramsdale, Peretz, Bazunu, McCarthy, George Long, and then there's the guy who I always forget who you're going to say, Jamie Jones or whoever.
Yeah, Jamie Jones. So George Long and Jamie Jones both on loans until the end of the season.
And they'll go back, surely.
Yeah, they'll go back. There's no options on their deals from the research I've done. Zunu, of course, currently out on loan at Stoke, who do have the option to buy, but he went there and immediately got injured and is still out. It was a thigh injury, and based off of like the prediction of how long he would be out at the time he was injured, he should be due back soonish. But is he going to do enough at Stoke to solidify a move there?
Well, how many games? 7 games? Got left now?
Seven games. Yeah, 8 games. It's a lot to ask from 8 games, isn't it? Especially when you think that. And whether you want to put any credence to it or not, with the defence playing in front of him, and I think our opinion on the podcast is pretty much that Bazunu wasn't the problem in the team, but stats suggest he was a concern, right? Lowest in the league.
Yeah, we needed to improve, and we did, right? And considering he struggled in Belgium, this is a second tier of English football. We're potentially trying to go up. I think it's one of those things where, I don't dislike Bazunu, but we have felt more confidence from Peretz than we've ever felt from him, and that's partly probably due to the fact there's been an immense amount of pressure on him from when he signed, basically. But
and this is another one of those moving parts, right? Because is he going to want to sit on the bench and be second choice to Peretz or to Ramsdale or to whoever ends up being in that position? Probably not. I think the fact that he went straight out on loan to Stoke tells the story, right? That's not what he wants, because we brought in another goalkeeper after he left, so he could have stayed and been second choice, presumably, you would think, right? I
get that, though. I can understand that. He'd already sort of had some time where that basically was the case, and again, we don't really know what's going on with Ramsdale, but we do know that it's going to cost an extortionate amount of money.
Yeah.
And I just kind of feel like he'd already made up his mind. I am baffled by the decision, considering he came to us to supposedly get more first team football. He would have had that. And then instead he goes to Newcastle, wanted to, be close to the family and all that jazz. And it's like, okay, whatever. But then hasn't really had the football there again, and is now just going to be continuing with the reputation of you're just there and team just get relegated or whatever. But it's funny how we've kind of both come to the conclusion we're I'd actually probably just prefer Peretz in goal. And again, I think part of that is this kind of situation of does he want to stay with us? Are we actually a priority? It very much feels like, despite the fact he's a permanent signing, it kind of almost felt like we had him on loan just because we're in the Premier League.
Because it was a free hit, right? We were always going to be able to get rid of him if we went down, because there would be interest.
Yeah, but the interest has been a loan and not permanent, and now we might end up in a situation where no one's going to buy him permanently, and then we're just ending up with 100 goalkeepers.
No, you're right, and look, that's the tricky part of it, and then that's going to be what it'll be. But you're right. My opinion does not lessen my opinion of Ramsdale as goalkeeper. He is obviously a good goalkeeper who will do a brilliant job for us in the Premier League if that's what we end up with. Right? I'm not digging on that, but Peretz feels like the choice for the future. Right? He can stay here and grow here and solidify, and go on to take us up levels to great things. I don't know if that is the case with Ramsdale. He's
but I also, the only thing that you've got to bear in mind with Peretz is that he is going to want to be playing at the top level.
100%.
You can very much easily see a situation we get promoted, he signs permanently, and then if there's another relegation situation, he's gone. It's part of it.
It's the same risk with both keepers, right? It's really, really tricky. And of course, you mentioned Alex McCarthy, obviously out injured.
Oh, right, yeah, in our mention of the hundreds of goalkeepers we have.
Yeah, but
6.
Obviously, he's currently recovering from wrist surgery. And, it was a strange one when he signed his contract renewal. I don't know if you remember it, but it was like the goalkeeper toss-up as to whether we were only really going to keep one of the two goalkeepers we had, and it was either him or Forster. And Forster was like the first-choice goalkeeper, and then we signed McCarthy to stay, and Forster left.
Did he not want another challenge, if I remember rightly? I think part of it was that Forster struggled with us, if I remember rightly. But either way, you're right. Like, if I remember rightly, he was brought in from Crystal Palace to basically sort of be a backup goalkeeper. Never really meant to be. I don't think he was meant to be as part of the furniture as he currently is.
Yeah.
And it's even for me, like, I don't really at this point consider him to be a backup. Like, if you've just had surgery, like, I think he still wants to carry on playing. I know keepers can play more, but it's like, I think maybe like his time at Saints has probably passed on. And like, if he's happy here, like.
Yeah. I mean, look, his contract is up at the end of the season, and there have been no murmurs of renewal. Obviously, like I say, out injured and recovering at the moment. Do I see a future where he extends for like a short term, for a year, to like keep some consistency in the club and be the second choice? Maybe. But, if we're in a position where the goalkeeper position is going to be shaken up one way or another, right? And so I don't know if that means we'll be happy bringing in a new second choice goalkeeper, or if we're going to pick one of the keepers that we've got to fill that role. It's really tricky. It's a really tricky position to fill. And I just feel like it's one that we're probably going to end up spending the entire transfer window talking about, mate. That's the problem. That's my concern with it. It's not going to be one that's resolved quickly. This is the next 6 months of our life, talking about goalkeepers yet again.
Oh, dear.
Right, mate, moving up the pitch. Look, I'm going to move it even further up the pitch than normal, because the next important talking point, I think, and the next key position that we're going to have to deal with coming into this transfer window is striker. So, of course, no secret that Ross Stewart is currently set to end his contract with us at the end of this year. We had a debate on the show not that long ago about whether we would renew him for another year or not, or what that deal might look like. Still been no announcements or anything from the club to suggest that decision's being made. And again, perhaps that's somewhat down to not knowing what we're going to be playing next season, right? Maybe that deal, maybe there is a verbal agreement that there will be a deal, but what that deal looks like depends on where we are, right? We don't work at the club, we don't know. But
how many times do you reckon he's played for us since we've been in?
I don't know.
Bear in mind, he signed in 2023.
It's not a lot, is it? He's been on the table a lot.
34 total. Played for 3 times in the Championship before he got injured again. 12 times in the Premier League, scoring that 1 goal, and then 19 times this season, scoring 5, assisting 2. So, it's one of those things where I really like Ross Stewart. I think you're right. I think it would be maybe like a 1 year short term and then see how we get on. But also, we're currently managing his minutes like we need to put him back on ice every 5 minutes. And
Yeah.
are you telling me that we can't find a kind of gangly hold up player striker? And I think we've already kind of found one with Laren who's a bit stronger. And there's no disrespect. I think like Laren has got a significantly bigger reason to fight for form right now, right? On top of the
Yeah,
fact that
home World Cup.
yeah, on top of, and on top of the fact that he's kind of struggled over the last couple of seasons. I think with Stewart, it's just a fight with his fitness, and then he'll get to a point where he can start, knocking them away for fun. And he did have that season for Sunderland when he was doing it. But the season he put away tons of goals was League One, which is quite different. And it's a really difficult one because of the fact that his injury record is one of the things that I think is most concerning.
Yeah, definitely.
But as a person, I'm like, yeah, the guy's great. I would really, I think he's good to stick around. But we have made so many decisions based off of heart versus head, right? Like Romeo on its own is a.
We will get to that, don't you worry. But yes, look, obviously you mentioned Carl Laren, the other option we've got at the moment, of course, also on loan with us. We do have an option to buy, apparently, as reported when we signed him. No disclosed fee on what that option to buy is. But yeah, I think based off of current form and what he's bringing to the squad, I think for me it's Laren over Stewart. And I think genuinely, based off of the other options we've got at striker currently, that the window probably comes down to we retain one of those two players and go in for a new striker, because we're going to need to strengthen that area. Whichever, the two of them together are not a strike force that are going to strike fear into the heart of Premier League teams, right? We need to strengthen that area, and
I agree.
And I think that to make space for that, one of those probably doesn't either renew or get signed. And I think based on at the moment, it would be Ross Stewart for me that is dropped from the picture to keep and sign Carl Laren with that option, and go out and strengthen and bring someone else in that position. Yeah, someone else. Of course, speaking of strikers, Zach, we do have other options, though, that are out on loan currently, right? So let's not forget Ben Diaz, who is currently out on loan to Derby. Derby don't have an option to buy Brereton Diaz. Upon my research for this episode, mate, which I did quite a bit of and sent you last night, I found maybe one of my favourite quotes from a rather disgruntled Derby fan who described Brereton Diaz as having more clubs than Tiger Woods.
Oh, that's very current as well. Oh, dear.
Look, he's improved at Derby over what we saw from him in a Saints shirt, but I don't know if that's the high praise that.
Sorry, I'm just looking at part of the rest of your notes that you've written on Ben Brereton Diaz. It just made me burst out laughing. With the fact that I also agree that his contract until 2028 is insane, absolutely insane. It's more the bracket note that you added to that, but it's one of those. It was one of those things when he first went over to Derby. Well, when we previously were part of GSPN, and we had Nick, who's one of the co-founders on the show, and he is a Derby fan, and he was kind of like, "Oh, yeah, around Ben Brereton Diaz," but also he's improved there. He's playing all right there. The problem is like if we do hit promotion, is Ben Brereton Diaz the answer to replacing Ross Stewart? And it's like, he's doing well at the Derby squad.
Even if we don't make promotion, I don't think that Ben Brereton Diaz is the answer. My concern
I just don't think he wants to be here either. I don't think he's going to want to come back.
2028, are we going to end up in another position where, we've seen the size of the squad being forced to shrink with players sort of sitting out their contract and not really making an effort? Is it just going to end up taking up a space of a potentially fresh and exciting striker that we could be bringing in? That is probably the concern. But, I mean, I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw him move literally anywhere. in the
Yeah,
summer.
I don't know. It never worked out with us. I don't know if it ever will work out. I don't know.
2028 is insane as well, by the way.
It's a long time. Obviously, it was, and I can understand why it took place at right, like when he
Yeah,
joined, it was like you looked at his record at like Blackburn and Sheffield United, and he'd done pretty good, and he'd played well alongside Armstrong, who was part of our squad at that point, if you remember that time. So
yeah,
it made sense, I guess, in a way, and then like again, it's more. I think with Peretz and Diaz, it's also like the cult hero status of him like randomly getting called up to play for Chile and all of that. All of that fed into this like idea, and the reality of the situation is that like I just think we've just got better options pretty much
yeah.
everywhere for where he would play,
Uh,
and that's a problem that he's got. And I do feel like maybe under Tonda he'll be able to get more out of him because Tonda has managed to get more out of everyone so far, but I just
yeah,
don't
maybe.
think it's something we want to
Is
rely
it
on,
going to
right?
be enough
Like,
though? Nah, probably not. Right. So
yeah, you might be right that he just ends up on another. I'm going to go on loan, then I'm going to go on loan again, and then my contract will expire and we'll forget. But I guess we'll have to see.
yeah, indeed. And last but not least, maybe I don't know. Let's not forget Damien Downs, who of course we signed in the summer and had a rough start time at Saints, of course, out on loan to Hamburg. Currently, Hamburg do have an option to buy Damien Downs at the end of the season if they so
They're not going to
wish.
buy him.
He didn't find his groove here and is, to be honest, struggling at Hamburg. 9 appearances in his time at Hamburg, totaling 0 goals and 0 assists. And in fact, I did a little bit of deeper digging into that statistic, mate. And in of those 9 appearances, 6 of them were starts. And in those 6 starts, he has only managed a total of 7 shots. And of those 7, only 4 were on target. So look.
We just sucked. He must have had the confidence completely sucked out of
Yeah,
him, and he's gone back to Germany, and he's hoped to find form on a place that he's found form previously. It just hasn't really worked out, and it might be the same reason that he was probably played in a way that didn't really suit his style, which we've talked about quite often. But on top of that, I think that I can't help but harken back to him having an interview with like ex USA like strikers who beginning of the season and talking about how he was like really excited to get going, and obviously it being a World Cup year and Pochettino picked, he was involved in the internationals before we signed him, and then it must now just be like it's like the opposite story to Cole Aaron where he is like dropped out completely, and that's also probably got to be a big hit to your confidence because if you're Pochettino, how could you pick him either? Like he's barely strung like over 15 shots together, and I don't know. It's just something there didn't click. Whether it was homesickness, whether it was what they wanted him to play not working out, whether it was not getting on with the squad, not getting on with the manager, whatever has happened over that course, like everyone was hoping that he would kind of go away in January and suddenly become a baller, and it's just not picked up for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting a fresh start elsewhere.
We saw sparks in pre-season from him. There's clearly a capable footballer in there somewhere. It didn't work out here. It doesn't look like it's working out at Hamburg. Who knows what or why, or any number of variables that go into it. But in the context of Saints, not likely to be an option we're considering, especially if we're up in the Premier League.
You never know. He might end up doing. Do you remember the season that Nathan Redmond did really, really well? And I don't know if you do remember that season, but it was off the back of in the summer he went away and did so much private training. Like he was doing like going away to camps and bits and pieces like that. Kyle Walker-Peters used to do the same thing with Dele Alli quite a lot, and then obviously when he was getting better and better, and like maybe he has an opportunity to kind of get himself into that level, because the problem is at the moment is you
maybe missing out on a World Cup, missing out on a home World Cup might be the kick that drives that sort of drive into you. But
Yeah.
As it stands, based off of available evidence, probably not one that we'll be expecting to weigh up as an option. But again, another one that out on loan, having to come back, could potentially end up in this like weird limbo state that we've seen a few times, where probably not good enough to make it into the first team, but also under contract long enough to to drag it out, right? We only signed him in the summer, so he's got at least a few years left on his contract, and
Yeah,
we all know that
just don't.
years on contract adds amount of pounds to fee. Although that said, the option to buy that we gave Hamburg was about 6 million, which is about what we signed him for. So it looks like we are willing to break even on him, right? Is what I've read from it. And how that plays out in the summer, I guess we will wait and see. Right, mate, the last position that I think is going to be a hot topic in the summer is fullback. I guess specifically right back, but fullback in general, right? And the big name that jumps out as a sensation that's come back to us from loan this season, James Bree, who's I don't think it's overstating it to say that he has been part of the transformation of this team, and a really important part.
It's basically started every game since he's come back, and come straight back into like a South Coast derby, and it's just been immense since then.
Yeah, and look, we've talked before about his contract situation, and honestly, I was hoping that part of like the good vibes we were going to be inevitably putting out as a club in this international break was just going to be a little contract extension for Bree. Just put that out, keep those vibes going. And so far, that hasn't been the case. Like I said earlier, like it might be that there's some kind of verbal agreement where what the deal looks like depends on where we play, or maybe he has, out and out said he doesn't want to sign it. Maybe we haven't put the deal out there, although Tonda has come out in several press conferences and said that the board know my opinion. I mean, to me, that almost reads as I've told them I want to keep him. They haven't done it yet, and I'm going to keep calling it out in press conferences until they do. Which in itself would be a concern. If it is that they're holding out, they do well to talk to Bree about it, seeing as one of the last things we heard from him was a complaint about lack of communication from the club, specifically around intent.
Yeah, it's why it's got me slightly worried, because it's like it might just be that he's quite happy to let that end and be picked up by someone else.
Yeah,
and he wouldn't even be surprised if he ends up going back to Charlton, to be honest, if they stay in the league, considering he had a nice time there. And or maybe gets picked up elsewhere. But it's one of those things where he's been transformational since he's come back. But again, it just shows that as much as the good times are rolling, and as much as a lot of the transfers in, like most of them were quite successful, we're now in a situation, we've got ourselves into a bit of a pickle with specific situations, and like sending him out on loan seemed to be one of them, to be honest.
We questioned it.
Think about it.
We questioned it at the time on the show.
Like, why? It just seems a bit weird more than anything else.
Yeah, it was weird. And look, considering how important he is and has been to the transformation to the team, honestly, if the season just fizzles out and then he just walks away on a free, and that's what happens, contract expires, I personally feel like that hurts more than it happening with Stewie, hurts a bit more than it did with Carl Walker-Peters. Like, it's, for me, it would be very sad to see it happen.
Yeah.
Other contracts and loans in this position as well, right, to talk about. So,
an upsetting amount, to be honest. It's mad that,
So, of course, like on loan, we have Yalert, who we have an option to buy. Obviously, it was reported really early on in the season.
Like day one, right? It was like pretty much like a couple of weeks after.
He hasn't really played a lot, to be fair. He has been out injured quite a bit. The option is £8 million.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money in it. I can see why that's probably too high of an ask for the contribution he has managed to have on this season.
Yeah.
Whatever way you try and swing it, really. Which is a shame, as someone that can play both sides. Obviously, that utility is incredibly useful, but I'm not really convinced.
Have we even seen him play left back at this point? Has he even come on at left back? I genuinely don't remember him coming on at that position at any point.
I don't really think that he's the type of fullback that thrives with the way that Tonda tends to play his formations anyway. So, maybe that's part of the contributing factor. And then out on loan, coming back potentially at the end of the season, who knows? Juan Larios, remember him? Is out at Real Zaragoza. Zaragoza do have an option to buy with Ruben Sellers.
They brought him back off of loan to send him on loan to a place with an option to buy. So I'd be very surprised if he ends up coming back again.
He's another player that probably doesn't suit our current style. Probably not physical enough for the Premier League, quite. A small lad, if I recall. But look, he's back playing regular football. 7 starts for Zaragoza. The only notable stat other than that is 3 bookings, which is what it is. But he's a regular starter. He seems to basically be starting every game for them. So they'll probably take the option. And fine, that works for me. The other one, of course, Yuki Sugawara, who is out on loan at Werder Bremen with an option to buy for a reported £6 million. This one's in Bremen's hands, to be honest. He's played 92% of the minutes available to him since joining Werder Bremen. So I suspect that he will be signing for Werder Bremen. An impressive 2,000 minutes of football so far this season.
That was a whole weird part anyway, right? Because he kind of fell out of favour at the beginning, last season, and Goalkeeper was played over him. There was the expectation of, maybe he'll actually be pretty good in the Championship, and then he goes out on loan basically immediately. And then he was the one that we speculated it was elsewhere, but he turned out to be the one where apparently they were like, we don't call anyone up that's playing in outside the top 5 leagues, right? Was that what?
Yeah, that is what they said. And you know what? It kind of is what it is. I respect it.
I mean, he still kept that international place, right?
He has, yeah. He started for Scotland. He'll probably start against Scotland. Sorry, not for Scotland. That would be weird. He probably start against England. Look, I don't know enough about Werder Bremen or the Bundesliga to know what their opinions are, and I don't speak enough German to have looked up any of opinions. To be honest, I tried. It didn't work out. All right.
It'd be interesting if we do get promoted.
They are 14th in the league currently after finishing 8th last season and 9th the season before. So it's not like a groundbreaking season for them, but that's not necessarily all on him. So for $6 million, I would think they would probably be willing to pay $6 million for a player who has played 2,000 minutes of football for them this season.
If they are planning, it's one of those things where we might end up in a situation, the worst situation is Gillette goes back off loan, Bree doesn't sign a new contract, Sugawara ends up signing, because again, it's their option to buy, and as you said, it sounds like they probably will, but then we end up with no right backs apart from Rorislev, who is still out injured, who we have for I don't know how many years. I know he's not out of contract anytime soon.
Yeah.
But
it was a 3-year deal.
Yeah, that whole thing was slightly weird, and it's one of those things where, do we cover him as an international saint? Because technically he plays for us, but also the chances are he is probably one of the ones that's nailed on and going. So I guess we'll find out.
Indeed. And then, I guess, kind of fullback, kind of centre-back. I mean, based off of current stats, kind of really neither. Charlie Taylor at West Brom, whose first note I have written on this sheet is, I forgot this man existed.
Yeah, no, we've had both times we've played West Brom, or we played this season, we have brought that up where we've forgotten that he can't play against us, but it's just kind of forget, right? He was the one that supposedly missed an interception at a corner against Leicester, right? Which is the game that Ryan Fraser got sent off in, and then we never saw him again. And then we did see him for maybe a start beginning of the season. Was it a start? We've only played friendly, I swear. He's played once or twice since then, but very, very sporadically. I think he played under our interim. And I remember that. But then, it was a signing that people at the time, including myself, was like, "Oh, that kind of makes sense. Like he's got the experience from Burnley, and it just never played and hasn't really participated in the team since then." So
No, that's it. Look, no option to buy for West Brom, although his contract with us is up at the end of the season. 32 years old, probably not going to be sending any extensions his way. Described in a recent article in the Birmingham News as the biggest flop West Brom have signed since Bainey. For context, he was a striker who was an exciting signing at the start of last February, who managed a whopping 5 appearances since then and has been out injured pretty much consistently since. 0 goal contribution to those 5 appearances either. He spent more time on the injury table than Ross Stewart, which is insane.
I don't know, mate. Like there might be an argument that for Leicester fans that Joe Aribo is a worth signing. I don't know if you saw a viral
touch
tweet.
on that.
Good. I saw it was a viral tweet that went around that was something like Leicester was hosting a bunch of like 11 scout leaders and like 68 scouts. Obviously for some like community event at Leicester, and somebody said that not a single one of them would have recommended Joe Aribo to the Leicester team, and you kind of feel bad because again, like you got cult hero status here. We had goal being played. People thought he'd be the answer. He came back.
Probably I've written it in the notes, mate. I was gonna get to it later, but honestly, probably just as popular with us because of his song. Not a lot to me. Such a hot and cold player. And then when he did manage to break his way into the first team this season, it really only served to highlight the weaknesses that he had. And
you're gonna start him at any point over Azaz.
Just to wrap up on Charlie Taylor, mate. Another horrific statistic for you. He's been playing mostly as centre back this season for West Brom in the team that has sacked almost the most goals in the league, despite being like one of their main starting centre-backs. He finds himself ranked 15th in the West Brom squad for tackles won.
Find a goalkeeper?
It's absolutely insane to me.
Yeah, but again, like sometimes I do think that for some people, last season did an absolute number on them. And they've gone out on loan and then hope to recapture, and they're still dealing with that. Whereas those that have stayed have managed to deal with it together.
Seasoned, experienced centre back, fullback at the age of 32. Sometimes you just lose a step with that. But I don't know. Joe Aribo obviously out of contract as well in summer at Leicester until then. What more can you say on that?
Relegation fight to relegation fight, innit?
We've talked about that to the cows come home. But
relegation fight to relegation fight. Mates are missing. Clearly, just isn't enjoying it as much as he was here. Isn't going to break back into the team. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the summer. Probably already confirmed behind the scenes, to be honest.
That's it. And then a couple of other notes, not of those key positions of like players out of contract, right? So we've got Romeu, of course, was only a short-term signing. Honestly, let's be honest, at this point, just a PR signing. Great to see him back at the club. I hope that part of turning around the team has been the experience that he brings in the dressing room and like the presence he provides. But I would be very surprised to see him stay on at the club as a player, at least.
You never know. They might have him as like one of those older players in the under 21s, right? An older player that plays in the reserves to kind of provide that little bit of mental edge. And you don't know.
I'm sure there's a place for him. I'm sure there's a place for him at the club. I'm not convinced as a first team player.
Does he still get signed if Shea Charles doesn't get injured and also Will Steele doesn't get fired?
I don't know. I don't think maybe, but only for the same PR reasons.
Yeah, okay. I can't even remember if he was signed before or after Will Steele was fired at this point. It's been so long. I want to say after, but I might just be making that up.
I think after too, but you're right. Honestly, I don't remember what crazy season it's been. And last on my list to talk about, mate, Will Smallbone out on loan at Millwall. Only managed 9 appearances for them this season. Been riddled with injuries. Another hamstring keeping him out probably for like most of the rest of the season. Another player whose contract's up at the end of the season, and I suspect, in all honesty, we have seen the last of Will Smallbone in a Saints shirt, which, whilst is a bit sad because obviously an academy player come through, fairly useful utility player in the centre of the park, but suffers for being a bit of a jack of all trades without really being exceptional at any of them. Of course, scored that opening goal against West Brom in the playoff semi-final to make St Mary's erupt in a way that I've never quite heard before or since. But yeah, another option that will probably be departing the club as all of these sort of ones wind up their time and leaving us with spaces to fill, right? Potential excitement to build a decent squad from that.
Yeah, again, so much of it is dependent on whether we go up, and that's what worries me. And then, like, there are some positions, like specifically fullbacks, where the whole thing could just come down like a house of cards, right? Like, there is a situation here where we end up with Rorislev, who is currently out injured, and Manning, and that's it. Like,
you can copy and paste any of our episodes about build-ups to transfer window from the last 2 seasons, mate, because we still need a striker, we still need a fullback, and there's still going to be
the goalkeeper situation is always something we end up having to talk about. You're right.
Well, we probably won't sign any more centre-backs, so at least
I'll take it, right? We finally sorted out one position out of and also that might change when we go up, because there might be questions around whether or not, a pairing that were once in the Premier League who struggled quite a bit might need some extra room.
I think with what's behind them being the important part of that, I think we'll be fine. I don't think it's a conversation we need to have, and it's definitely not one, mate, we need to have today, because that is far away.
It's going to 100% been a two-parter. You were like, I don't know. And then as we've been going through it, like, we got like 20 minutes in, I was like, we could have done this in probably 3 episodes if we wanted. So you just get a bumper episode today, everyone. Enjoy.
That's it. The joy of it. But look, let us know your thoughts, opinions, comments in the comments on the socials. What do you think the summer transfer window is going to look like? Are we going to renew Bree before then? Or is it just a case of waiting to know whether we are up or not? Let us know. We are Daily Saints Pod absolutely everywhere. TikTok, Blue Sky, X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Hit us up, let us know. We love hearing from you. It genuinely drives us to keep doing this. And so thank you all for all of your interactions. We see and try to respond to almost all of them. We will be back tomorrow to talk more Saints. I think this time international Saints, which is always a fun episode. But until then, everybody, have a wonderful day. We will see you then.
This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.